Welcome to Zoo Nation, where we talk about history as it holds and talk about the political zoo of a nation that we're living in. I'm Josh, and I'm going to be flying solo today. Had something come up with Nathan where he's not going to be able to make it. He had his conflict. And so I wanted to go ahead and carry on and record an episode for you. Since I'm only half the show, we usually try and go between an hour and a half. And since I'm only half the show, we'll probably cap it at 45 minutes maximum. Which, y'all know that I have another podcast, and so y'all know that it's not that I can't go on longer. In fact, I have gone on longer on my podcast, but we're going to make sure we go to 45 minutes because I've talked about it in the before. We've got a really good dynamic here, Nathan and I, with our different viewpoints. Myself, as someone who's more Pat Buchanan and Ann Coulter, as someone that's decidedly hard right. And then Nathan, who is a mixture of libertarian and conservative, and kind of a little bit more Ben Shapiro. Dan Bongino describes himself that way. Rand Paul to an extent. And it's really cool because you're hearing from two different people that are on the right. It's just that we view things differently, but we always find things to agree on, and it's a good show. But nevertheless, you're going to enjoy it this evening as I cover some recent things in the news. Got big stories about the geriarchy that we live in. What would it be? Ruled by geriatrics. Geriatrarchy. Because of Joe Biden possibly being impeached. Mitch McConnell freezing up on camera. Mitt Romney actually announcing that he will not seek a second term. Mitt Romney is 76 years old. I didn't realize that. Didn't think he was even in the 70s. And then you got McCarthy saying, Matt Gaetz is not loyal to me, which is like, great, good. People shouldn't be loyal to Kevin McCarthy, right? They should be loyal to values, not to establishment hacks like Kevin McCarthy, right? So you have that, and then you have Nancy Pelosi saying, even though I was Speaker of the House in the past, not only am I going to run for re-election in the Democrat Party in the House, I'm also going to try to be Speaker of the House. Woohoo, yay, we're all so happy. No, we're not. Okay, so we have some things to go into. And we also have some talks about COVID policy possibly coming back. Yeah, don't we just think about that with a bunch of warm fuzzies? Doesn't that give you warm fuzzies when you think about going back to being in your house, coming out of your house and having to wear a mask, being told you may have to get a vaccine or lose your job? Fills you with the warm fuzzies and not the good kind, right? Okay, so to begin with, pretty big news that there's an impeachment inquiry, not an actual effort for impeachment, but an impeachment inquiry. And here we have some things from the dailymail.uk to read. Hunter Biden indicted on 3 felony charges for lying about being on drugs when he bought a gun. According to the indictment brought by special counsel David Weiss, not sure, Hunter lied about his drug use when he purchased a gun in 2018. The indictment comes days after Republicans opened an impeachment inquiry into President Biden for his alleged connections to Hunter's business dealings. Joe Biden begged Hunter to get help in a voicemail on October the 15th, 2018, days after his son allegedly lied on the gun application. Hunter Biden faces up to 25 years in prison after being indicted on 3 felony charges for lying about his crack cocaine addiction when buying a gun. In a sensational development, the first son will have to appear in court after a Delaware grand jury returned 3 charges against him, including 2 counts of false statements on his gun forms and 1 of possessing a firearm while addicted to illicit drugs. The White House is not commenting on the new felony charges for the president's son, and Biden joked he would get in trouble if he answered press questions at the end of an economic speech later Thursday. Okay, so this article came out today. Now, what do you think? I mean, is anyone surprised? It's like, okay, you are selling this to Hunter Biden. Why are you even asking if he's on drugs? Of course he is. I mean, we all know that this guy by this point, in the year of our Lord 2023, is a drug addict, and it's just ridiculous that anyone even thought to themselves, well, this guy's probably all right. Let's sell him a gun. It's like, no, very, very stupid. Now, one thing that this article goes on to point out, the dailymail.uk, which is not at all on the right, very much a leftist paper, or site now, not necessarily paper. It is a shattering blow, the article says, for President Joe Biden, who has stood by his son and is running for re-election in 2024. The move by Special Counsel David Weiss is a significant escalation in his investigation into the president's son for gun and tax crimes, which is still ongoing. So, that's one source we got, and these are going to be in the comments and description, guys, so that y'all can read this for yourself. Don't just take Nathan and I's word for it. We want to arm you with the truth. So that's the first one we've got going on, but also what else is being said, and specifically with this phone call, any other details we have about it, dailymail.com. Exclusive, Joe Biden knew Hunter was having a drug-fueled meltdown at time he bought the gun. As president is heard in voicemail, tearfully pleading with his son to get some help. DailyMail.com obtained a voicemail Joe Biden left Hunter pleading with his son to get some help on October 15, 2018. The timing of the message reveals the president knew about his son's drug-fueled meltdown at the time. He purchased a gun 3 days earlier on October 12th. Hunter, 53, lied about being a drug user when filling out a sworn gun purchase form at a Delaware store, a crime the first son was indicted for on Thursday. The president knew Hunter Biden was in a crack cocaine-fueled meltdown when he bought a gun, a crime the first son was indicted for Thursday. It's kind of repeating itself here. There's two sections that say this. Joe Biden left his son a voicemail on October the 15th, sounding close to tears and begging him to get some help, just 3 days after Hunter bought a .38 caliber Colt revolver from a Delaware store by lying on a federal form that he was not a drug addict. On Thursday, a Delaware grand jury indicted Hunter on 3 charges of gun crime, a felony which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Prosecutors should have little trouble convincing a jury of his guilt after he admitted in his memoir to being in the throes of a full-blown addiction at the time. The charges mean Hunter will now likely face a damaging trial dragging into his father's presidential campaign in 2024, and may just be the first of more indictments, including tax and potential illegal foreign lobbying or money laundering offenses. This come as Republicans announced this week they are seeking to impeach the president over alleged involvement in Hunter's shady overseas business dealings, evidence for which DailyMail.com has unearthed over the past 2 years. So, DailyMail.com, I will say, a British organization, is saying, okay, we've unearthed some of this evidence over the past 2 years. So, I guess thank you, British people, despite y'all being on the left. Hey, maybe you just decided you would rather help a far left person get in there. That's why you're turning on Biden. Not sure what the left's actual strategy is here. But yeah, we've got that. And so we have a voicemail from this person, meaning the president, begging this other person, his son, get some help. And it's like, okay, what prompted that? Number one, was it that he texted his dad and said, oh, I got a gun? Or what exactly happened? Democrats say President Joe Biden's son Hunter should be punished if convicted on gun charges, also from DailyMail.com. Even Democrats think bombshell felony charges against Hunter are warranted. Democrats are sounding off against President Joe Biden's son Hunter, 53, after he was hit with 3 felony charges for lying on a gun form about his drug use. Lawmakers within the president's own party appear to agree with the bombshell charges issued Thursday by Special Counsel David Weiss, who was appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate Hunter's crimes. The House Judiciary Committee's top Democrat Representative Jerry Nadler of New York said he believes Hunter Biden is disturbed. You know, it's interesting. I don't listen to him very often, but when I do, sometimes I enjoy it. Is the one and only Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro was talking about what I'm telling you now. And it was interesting to me because I thought to myself, what is he going to say? What position is he going to have? And it was an interesting one. And then this article backs it up too. Sorry, guys, for the blurry camera. We'll try and make it a little bit better. Well, basically, the idea could be, is the left, and even Joe Biden himself, are these people going to turn on Hunter Biden? And if so, why? And what all is going to happen as far as that goes? So, not sure why Joe would do that. One thing to think about is he's said on camera, I think at the debate, but certainly in speech. Okay, so certainly in the Democrat debates. The reason I said the debate, I was thinking about when Biden debated Trump. But certainly when Biden debated other Democrats, he talked about, look, here's the deal. My son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. That's just one example that I remember, really, really remember, of him talking about this. And it's like, okay, there are people, to be fair, in the Democrat Party and in the mainstream media that'll say, oh, that's out of context. And it's like, okay, you guys, what context goes against that? Like, what kind of context shows, oh, wait, whenever you hear my son did nothing wrong and I did nothing wrong, that it all became clear that Joe Biden was actually in the right? No, there's no context that'll clear that. But somebody will. I mean, these people, you find them on Twitter with wave, like, you know, the ocean wave emojis in their bio, in their Twitter handle, in their Twitter name, and also the Ukraine flag, and maybe a NATO flag, or whatever. These people are just delusional and stupid. And these people will go on there and they say the most ridiculous thing in the entire world. Now, Twitter has gotten better because of, even though there's people that are not allowed back on Twitter, and that's stupid, there's a lot of people that formerly were off Twitter that have allowed to come back. And a lot of their followers are right-wing. And they're able to stay on Twitter longer without getting banned as often or at all, which is nice. That's a relief. You know, Twitter's not perfect, but it is better than it was at least. Great. And there's been some pretty interesting things trending on Twitter, including Alex Jones and Donald Trump, mugshot. You know, these things where people are actually able to have some level of discourse, which is pretty good. Again, not perfect, but good. And regardless, though, you are going to see people with the blue waivers, and, you know, they tend to be college students, like just a fringe minority of college students. I think a lot of college students are just going to go with Marianne Williamson or Cornel West, right? Or just not vote. But some college students are on there, baristas, and they're like, oh, we believe that, you know, Joe Biden is still better than Trump, and Joe Biden, you know, at least he will be good for people of color. And then, so you got that, and then you've also got, I forget his name, Brooklyn Dad. There's also a guy named Jeffrey Tidge or something like that. One of whom is probably like a 50-something or 60-something college professor who's just delusional and stupid. And the other one's probably a 30 or 40-something-year-old man. And these people, you know, a little older than the college students, and they're just delusionally stupid. Joe Walsh is another one. Rick Wilson's another one. So you have them, and then you've got wine moms, people that genuinely got excited when they heard that Colbert and Kimmel and Fallon, what's the other stupid person's name? I can't remember now. Seth Meyers, and I think Oliver, the British guy John Oliver, I think is his name, are making a podcast. They're like, oh, we can't wait to tune in. And it's like, these people are not comedians. These people, once in a while, by sheer coincidence, because of them opening their mouth, are funny. Look, it's only a matter of time. Whenever you are a commentator of any kind, eventually you're going to say something that's just downright funny, okay? You talk and you talk and you talk and you talk, and occasionally you're funny, right? Nathan and I are pretty funny on here. But these people, Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon, whenever they're funny, it is like a broken clock being right twice a day. It's actually a miracle. It's like, wow, you know, right now, in this moment, when you are being funny on camera, on TV, or on a podcast, somewhere in a different alternate reality, a pig is flying, you know? So that's kind of the constituency that Biden has. These wine moms, these little kids, and these boomers that are just stupid. And you know, there's some older people that are still wearing a mask and think, you know, Joe Biden, best president we ever had. And look, that's true. They're out there. As ridiculous as it is, they're out there, and it's sad. So, some Democrats, though, here, and again, they may be younger, we'll see if it breaks it down by age, are saying this may be a problem with his legal battles. And it's hard to say, is any of this pragmatically trying to get rid of Biden in hopes of forcing Marianne Williamson in there? Are they holding out hope that someone else that's not running currently, not Williamson and not Cornel West, maybe they're hoping for Michelle Obama? This is someone that Nathan brings up habitually, Michelle Obama. And what's funny is, she's not announced to run yet, but I appreciate the fact that Nathan brings her up. Because if she did run, I think that would be a problem. I think it would be a problem for the right because there's a lot of stupid people, I just started talking about them, that would go stand hand to hand with Michelle Obama and say, you make us think of the good old days with the Obama administration, plus you're black, plus you're a woman, allegedly. And, they would go with her for that reason. And so it's stupid, but she would get votes. It's kind of like if The Rock or Oprah ran. It's like, yeah, we're just voting for you because you're a celebrity. Not because of political qualifications, not really because you're a thoughtful or insightful person, but because we like you. You have a nice smile. I remember Roseanne Barr saying she wishes that Alec Baldwin would run for president, which is funny because Roseanne Barr had a bit of a falling out with the left. She claims, by the way, she's like, no, y'all left me. Y'all were for the little guy. Now y'all are for the elites. And she's actually a pretty hardcore Trump supporter, which is really cool. Pretty conservative from what I can tell. Not hard, right? But at least someone that is cool with Trump, so we applaud that, right? That's great. So, we have Representative Nadler saying what he said. And the question is it pragmatic or is it that, and the question is, how far does this pragmatism go? Is it, we're going to get rid of Joe by getting rid of Hunter? Is that the idea? I mean, that very well could be. Or is it, we're going to say this and hopefully Joe will hear about it or someone will tell Joe about it. And then Joe will quietly stop talking about his son doing nothing wrong. And I don't know. The thing is, Shapiro, a lawyer, brought up, he may come up and say, my son is disturbed and needs to face this legal battle. And I support him, but he needs to face these serious legal charges. I would be shocked if that happens. I think that Joe Biden denies, and does whatever he has to do with money and with governmental power to protect his son, which is disgusting and despicable, shouldn't happen in a country that allegedly believes in the rule of law, but I could see that. I just don't see Joe turning on Hunter. There's not been a past for that, and again, if he does, there's going to be video compilations of all the times he said nothing wrong happened, and it's going to obviously anger the right. Will it convince anyone on the left? Probably not the people that only listen to the left, but the few people that listen to the left and the right will see that video and think to themselves, oh yeah, didn't Joe say that? Why did he change his tune? And again, it'll only be a couple of people. There's another Tim Pool out there, someone that's kind of toward the left that's gonna come to the middle. That's what I mean. Not because Tim Pool is not a right winger. Tim Pool is not a conservative. He's someone that's in the middle and used to be more on the left with Bernie Sanders. And there's people that are still like that in this country. And they need to come to the middle because being on the middle, as bad as that is better than being on the left. Because at least on the middle, we hope you can vote against the transing of the kids. Now, we'll argue with you about transgenderism in general and get you to see that men are men and women are women. And we'll have you voting with us one day to, as Michael Knowles has said, eradicate transgenderism. But in the meantime, we'll settle for you being against transing of the kids. And try to also give a rationale for saying, you know what, if it's a problem for kids to play sports against kids when they're not the same sex, it's also wrong for them to go in the bathroom together, which is that's the centrist position. This is what I say about centrist being ridiculous. Is because the centrist position is, I think it's fine for Caitlyn Jenner to have a show on Fox News and for a man to go into the bathroom where there's a sign on the door saying women. But, if he, as a younger person, like 13, 14, 15, plays a sport against a girl, then that's going too far. And it's like, yeah, well, where do you think the rapes occur? It's horrible, just horrible. So that's the centrist position, unfortunately. And if you're in the center, I'm sorry. It's pretty hard for you to be a centrist right now, considering the fact that the centrist position is so far to the left. It's also a centrist position in a lot of people's minds to be for Obamacare, but not necessarily for Medicare for all. Obamacare, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, that is just, penalizing people where they pay a fine for not buying into this pseudo public option. It's horrible. Really, really horrible. Dishonest. Got to move on to the next sources, though. I'm already 20 minutes in. Okay, so will Joe Biden pardon son Hunter? Possible prison sentence on gun crimes raises questions, even though Karine Jean-Pierre said it would not happen. So she said, this isn't going to go anywhere. Well, it's starting to go somewhere. The White House has so far been unequivocal that President Biden will not pardon his son Hunter, but that stance will be tested now that Hunter Biden has been indicted on 3 counts over gun charges and faces a possible prison sentence. White House Secretary Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre bluntly stated in late July that Biden wouldn't make the controversial move following the spectacular collapse of Hunter's plea deal with prosecutors. Now the president's son is facing up to 25 years behind bars over charges that would have been dispensed through a diversion program and plea deal, which fell apart and led to the appointment of David Weiss as a special counsel. From a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son? Jean-Pierre got asked. No, she answered. When pressed, she doubled down. I just said no, I answered, she responded. The statement was a departure for Jean-Pierre, who routinely avoids comment on Hunter Biden and other questions with the judicial flavor by referring them to the Department of Justice or simply declining to comment. Throughout the Biden administration, the president and his top aides have sought to avoid delving into judicial matters, saying they prioritize an independent judiciary and sometimes using the posture as a defense tactic. Democratic Representative Dan Goldman of New York has said it would be a mistake for Biden to pardon his son. Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. Goldman, who served as lead counsel for Trump's first impeachment, told ABC last month. Presidents of both parties have been tempted to use their virtually unlimited pardon power, which is established in Article 2 of the Constitution. So, the claim now, and watch, it'll change. I'm going to tell you now, mark your calendars, write down a note somewhere and keep it in mind, is, of course, Joe Biden is not going to pardon Hunter Biden. But whenever he does, watch what they say. There's going to be some kind of a, well, this is an extenuating circumstance. Well, look over here. The MAGA Republicans are bad. Like you kind of just heard of, unlike President Trump, who pardoned all his friends, the argument will be, well, Trump pardoned all these people. This is what they're going to say. But Joe Biden only pardoned one. How ridiculous. What a double standard. And it's like, no. The difference is Hunter Biden has been brought up on charges. Donald Trump Jr. was not. Eric Trump was not. Tiffany or Ivanka were not. We're talking about the son of a government official being pardoned. Keep your eye on the ball here, idiots. There's also an article I have, just more stuff about the White House, and by that I mean Karine Jean-Pierre being non-committal. I talked this past week, it's an episode I recorded recently, but it's going to go out Saturday, just like this one is, about a kakistocracy, rule by the stupid. And between John Fetterman, Joe Biden, AOC, and, the mental cases like Marianne Williamson. And then you got Kamala Harris, who says things like, I would like to exclaim with the sound of my voice as I raise my head and open my mouth. I would like to speak. I would like to talk today about what I am wishing to address, something that I wish to proclaim from the platform right now. I will say it loudly and clearly. I wish that everyone would hear me. She just circles verbally over and over and over and doesn't really say anything. It's just goofy. But then you got Karine Jean-Pierre, who, it's actually, one thing about having a kakistocracy of being ruled by the stupid is it turns eyes on it and everyone realizes what a joke it is. And that this is a clown show party. I mean, the Republican Party is weak and ineffectual, and I said this on my podcast, especially when it came to voting on Ukraine. There was like 5 resolutions. All of them failed, and they were really good common sense resolutions. One of them, guys, was literally, okay, Mr. President, meaning Joe Biden, tell us what your strategy is for beating Ukraine. Tell us, Congress, not necessarily the American people, Congress. That got voted down. All the Democrats voted against it, and a decent amount of the Republicans did too. Now, that was a thinner margin, but there was other resolutions, not even about completely ending aid to Ukraine, but limiting it. And that got voted down. Over 140 Republicans voted with the Democrats, all the Democrats, on that one. So they're weak and ineffectual, sure, but at least when they speak, it's not talking in circles like Harris or just no comment and or refusing to do their job. They at least look, they refuse to do their job, or they actually do a bad job, which is kind of what Psaki did. Psaki, she would say, I'm going to circle back, and never would circle back. That's not doing your job, sure. But she was more competent than Karine Jean-Pierre, and I kind of prefer a bad Democrat press secretary. Now, if it was a Republican press secretary, I'd be screaming all the time, get that person out of there. They make the party look bad. They make the movement look bad. But in the case of the Democrat Party, I'm kind of okay with the Democrat Party looking stupid. Because what'll happen is whenever the next president goes in there and gets a better person in there, the difference will be so different. It'll be like, I kind of, repeated myself there. Sorry, not trying to do a Kamala Harris impression. So people will be able to tell the difference, though. They'll be able to see, well, look at this. You got Karine Jean-Pierre and her responses. And, for example, they put Kayleigh McEnany back in, someone like that. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, although she's governor right now, that wouldn't really work. But she did a good job, and so did Kayleigh McEnany. So that's, rule by the stupid or leadership by the stupid occasionally is useful. Because hopefully, if only the Democrats could see how the world is laughing at us, they would think twice about whenever they wander into a voting booth in November. They would think, look at this. I mean, we're just the joke. We're the sick man of the world. Instead of the sick man of Europe being the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of the world. That's what we are. As Glenn Beck pointed out at one point, I don't like everything about Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck talked about people are seeing America like Joe Biden, an old man just sorry about that. An old man just kind of wandering around. That's how they see America right now. That's the representation of America. So, and yeah, whenever they think of America, they think of this person that's just getting up and talking and saying nothing, which would be Kamala Harris. All right, another thing. Biden, quote, not focused on Republicans' impeachment probe. I believe that. I believe he's not focused on the Republicans' impeachment probe because I don't think he's focused on anything. Okay, I joke. But he's not focused on their impeachment probe because, in other words, he is trying to, instead of working on the impeachment probe and whatever, like trying to comply legally, he's going to try to undermine it. And but there's also going to be, like, publicly, he's going to be ignoring it, but privately, he is going to be speaking to the DOJ and his lawyers and saying, what are my legal options and how can I get out of this? How can I avoid this? Either he is or the person actually running the country is. So that's not especially surprising. But, does Joe even know what's going on? Probably, because I think he does have enough brain in his head left to know, oh no, they're coming after my son who did nothing wrong. Did I mention that recently? It's like my dad used to say, Champ, never let something happen to your son, even when he's out smoking crack and banging whores and getting them pregnant and then refusing to name the child after him. I'm pretty sure your dad didn't say that. Hunter Biden has been indicted on 3 firearm charges. There's another article to that from Newsmax. I'm going to put that in the sources for you. But now we got to talk about McCarthy. There's been, it was interesting. I really like some of the infighting. I like the blood sports of politics sometimes. And that includes right now with McCarthy saying, this is from Newsmax, Gates is working with Swalwell to oust me. Interesting. I'm curious to see the proof here. Connect the dots for me, Kevin. I'm sure that Kevin McCarthy, a man who has supported every war known to man, someone that is a rhino if there ever was one, a strong, stalwart maverick like John McCain, and I don't say that congratulatory way. I'm sure someone like him does feel undermined by Gates, but connect the dots between Gates and Swalwell. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy of California accused Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida of working with Representative Eric Swalwell, a Democrat of California, to oust him from the top position in the lower chamber. Matt is working with Eric Swalwell, but let me be very clear. McCarthy told CNN's Manu Raju on Wednesday. Matt is upset about an ethics complaint. I don't care what they threaten against me. I'm not going to interject into an independent committee like ethics, and I'm not going to put Swalwell back on the Intel committee, so they can do whatever they want. McCarthy was referring to an investigation into Gates currently being conducted by the House Ethics Committee, which centers on alleged illicit drug use, sexual misconduct, and lobbying violations. House Republicans removed Swalwell from the Intelligence Committee earlier this year over allegations of a relationship with suspected Chinese spy Christine Feng. Pretty sure her name was just Feng Feng. The Speaker's suspicion of bipartisan collusion between Gates and Swalwell to undermine him may stem from a Weekend Post the Florida lawmaker made on X, formerly Twitter, which read, "Hi Eric, if I make a motion to remove Kevin, how many Democrat votes can I count on? Asking for a friend." In an interview with MSNBC on Wednesday, Gates strongly denied any connection between the ethics investigation and his threat to put forward a motion to vacate the chair in Congress. "I am the most investigated man in the entire Congress, and right there you saw Kevin McCarthy lying like a dead dog because I have never asked him to interfere in any ethics matter," Gates said, adding that the Speaker's comments are an abject lie from a sad and pathetic man who lies to hold on to power. Based. I love Matt Gaetz. Now what he's been doing or whatever in his personal life, if there's a problem, of course he should be presumed innocent until proven guilty. I happen to think all of it or most of it is made up. It's probably some minor thing like, hey man, you may have smoked weed when you were a kid or like a teenager or something. I don't know. That may be what it is when they say things like illicit drug use. And look, should people be smoking pot at all? No, they should not. I am not for drugs. But I'm just saying it's probably less of a deal than people are making it out to be. So, he's basically saying, no, I'm calling for McCarthy to go off of his leadership position, to be removed because of his failure to lead. He's a weak leader. Not because of the fact that the House is investigating me. And it's like, I actually happen to believe that. I do. I don't think that just looks weird, from optics standpoint, number one. But number two, McCarthy is such a bad leader that I really think that Gates and other people forced him to launch this impeachment inquiry. I don't think that McCarthy would have gotten it done. Probably same for releasing January 6th footage and giving it to Tucker Carlson. That was probably Jim Jordan's doing. Not necessarily McCarthy, but McCarthy got the credit. I don't give McCarthy the credit. I give him partial credit in the sense of, yeah, you didn't resist. You did go along with it, so that's good. It's kind of like Roberts going along with the Supreme Court justices and overturning Roe v. Wade, though. I don't really give Roberts much credit for that, only that he went along with stronger people. Let's see. Gates refused to back McCarthy's speakership bid in January and repeatedly cast his ballot against the Californian Republican in multiple rounds of voting. The Florida congressman relented on the 15th ballot and voted president, allowing McCarthy to clinch the speakership. More recently, Gates expressed frustration with what he perceived as a lack of urgency on McCarthy's part when it came to opening an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. Moments ago, Speaker McCarthy endorsed an impeachment inquiry, Gates said from the House floor on Tuesday. This is a baby step following weeks of pressure from House conservatives to do more. Yeah, it sounds like he's basically saying, we've been saying to do something for a long time, and you're finally saying, okay, we'll do an impeachment inquiry. So, am I surprised to hear that? No, I'm really not. Another article from Newsmax. Article title says, "Perfect Storm Brewing. More infighting in the Republican Party. Perfect storm brewing against Speaker McCarthy. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is facing an end-of-the-month deadline to avoid a government shutdown, as some Republicans say his job won't be safe if their wishes on the budget and other issues aren't met. A possible shutdown is part of a tangled puzzle for McCarthy, a California Republican, who also faces the issues of continuing aid for Ukraine and a potential impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden." So, y'all can read that. I'm not going to go too much into it because of time. I will say, though, I did do some reading on my podcast that the next spending bill will include sending missiles to Ukraine. So that's kind of consequential. I don't know if it'll actually go through like that. It probably will, because there's an establishment that wants a war with Russia, and that's all I'm going to say about that without Nathan here to contend with me. But basically, if McCarthy does go along with a spending bill, it's likely that missiles will go to Ukraine. So your tax dollars at work. Representative Laturner to Newsmax said the impeachment inquiry chance to get Biden documents. So there's a chance that they're going to be able to get Biden's documents that are either sitting with or were sitting with his Corvette, I want to say, under his Corvette in a garage. But time to go to the next topic. I only got 10 minutes left. CDC panel urges broad use of updated COVID vaccines. A U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention advisory panel on Tuesday called for a broad use of the updated COVID-19 vaccines approved by the government, covering ages 6 months and up. Covering ages 6 months and up. Paving the way for a broad use of the shots in a vaccination campaign due to begin within days. In making the recommendation on a vote of 13-1 to CDC Director Mandy Cohen, the advisors embraced a wide use of the shots rather than aiming at specific populations at higher risk. They made a day after U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorized updated COVID vaccines made by Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech, as well as by Moderna. Novavax said the FDA was still reviewing its shot. The shots are a part of a push by public health officials to align the next COVID vaccines more closely with the actual circulating variant of the virus, much as annual flu shots are designed. So, you have that going on, and are we surprised? And I will say one thing that makes me very proud of Trump is Trump made a video saying we are not going to comply. We refuse. We are not going to go along with this. This is not going to happen. And our message is we're not going to wear masks. We're not going to have lockdowns. We're opposing to this. Never again. Because you know what else is going to happen soon? Another election. And so good for Trump for not doubling down and saying, well, you know. But basically, in other words, he seems to have learned his lesson about keeping Fauci around, not firing him like he should have, and then funding Warp Speed. It sounds like Trump has learned some valuable lessons, which I hope he has. And I believe that he has. Otherwise, I would be way more hesitant to vote for him. So, one thing, speaking of Trump, that's also going on, are Trump haters aim to bar him from ballots. As if the 4 previous prosecutorial cow pies that surround Donald J. Trump were not fetid enough, the U.S. Supreme Court will soon step into efforts to bar him from state ballots. Assorted Trumpaphobes are abusing the Bill of Rights to deny Americans the right to vote for or against DJT for president. Specifically, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment disqualifies from high office certain individuals who shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. Constitution or given aid or comfort to the allies thereof. This legal theory might make sense if Trump had been imprisoned for insurrection or rebellion. It might hold water if he had been convicted of insurrection or rebellion. This boomlet even might boast a thimbleful of steam if the Justice Department, a state attorney general, or some county prosecutor had indicted him for insurrection or rebellion. Unfortunately for Trump haters, this never happened. In a bizarre and totally unprecedented action, Democrats waited until after Trump departed the White House to try him for incitement of insurrection. His second impeachment trial resembled an employer firing an employee after he left the company. The House's incitement accusation already was one step short of insurrection, akin to telling someone to torch your house rather than personally lobbing a Molotov cocktail onto its front porch. Regardless, 43 U.S. senators found Trump not guilty, while 57 disagreed, 10 shy of conviction. So the Senate acquitted Trump of insurrection. Moreover, the 14th Amendment's 1868 insurrection language is tied to the Civil War. It was designed to keep Jefferson Davis, Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and other Confederates out of Congress and the White House. I would like to just point in, as the history buff in the room, that wouldn't have worked because Stonewall Jackson was dead by that point. I mean, unless the Democrats wanted to run him, which a lot of the Democrats were in the South at that point, to be fair. It was a different Democrat Party. The Democrat Party was the conservative party back then. So, anyway, but no, the other people were still alive, and theoretically they could have, when coming back into the Union, tried to be part of the government, and this banned them. Trump's detractors cannot escape these facts. There are distractors and detractors, okay? He never served the Confederacy and was born 81 years after the North defeated the South in 1865. Yeah, plus he's a Yankee. Isn't that funny? It's like these Yankees passed this bill against the Confederacy, and then Trump runs, and they're like, Yeah, you, the guy born in New York, we're gonna try and enforce laws against the Confederacy against you. It's just so stupid. These people have an IQ the size of a Fruit Loop. It's just so sad. It's like, yeah, our best and our brightest leading this country, trying to show, who we have here as leadership. It's bad, guys. So we've got that going on, and certain states are trying to ban him from running, and it's pretty sad. But we didn't even go into your friend and mine, Senator Mitt Romney. I almost said Rick Santorum. No, he ran against Rick Santorum. Mitt Romney, ex-presidential candidate, not seeking re-election in 2024. This is from dailymail.uk. Reposted from PA Media. Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney has said he will not run for re-election in 2024, creating a wide-open contest in a state that heavily favors Republicans and is expected to attract a crowded field. Mr. Romney, former presidential candidate and governor of Massachusetts, made the announcement in a video statement. The 76-year-old said the country is ready for new leadership. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders, he said. They're the ones that need to make the decisions that will shape the world they will be living in. Mr. Romney easily won election in reliably Republican Utah in 2018, but was expected to face more resistance from his own party after he emerged as one of the most visible members to break with former President Donald Trump, who is still the party's de facto leader. In 2020, Mr. Romney became the first senator in U.S. history to vote to convict a president from their own party in an impeachment trial. Mr. Romney was the only Republican to vote against Mr. Trump in his first impeachment and one of 7 to vote to convict him in the second. So he was the only Republican in the first one, only one of 7 to convict him in the second one. Mr. Trump was acquitted by the Senate both times. Mr. Romney was booed by a gathering of the Utah Republican Party's most active members months after his vote at the second impeachment trial, and a measure to censure him narrowly failed. Wow, he almost got censured, apparently. Not a big surprise. So he's not running again, and I'm kind of glad to hear that. I'm tired of him being in politics. He was in for too long, so unfortunately a lot of the damage has already been done. But anyway, that's pretty much enough of that. We have other things to get into, but I'm going to have to get into them next time I come on here because I'm 42 minutes, and it's time to get ready to wrap up. Because McConnell has frozen. I'm not going to read the article, but it'll be in the comments regardless. I'll just say quickly for synopsis that McConnell has frozen on camera, and a doctor shortly after he froze said, "Oh, he's good." And the public, a lot of Republicans and Democrats, but the Democrats have said, "Oh, you Republicans don't care." And it's like, I don't know what planet you're living on. I see plenty of Republicans talking about this, are saying, "Okay, doctor, tell us exactly what happened. What happened? Why did he freeze up on camera? Is he having a stroke? Is it just Alzheimer's?" Which, just Alzheimer's, that's nothing to, sneeze at. What's going on? Tell us exactly medically what's wrong. Heck, the people in Kentucky need to know because of the election that next comes up, whether, they'll vote for him or not. 73% say that Senator McConnell should resign. Pretty high number. And also, Nancy Pelosi, your friend and mine, is saying, even though I used to be Speaker of the House and stepped down, I am going to run again. Number one, I will run again. I will run as a representative. And number two, I will run as Speaker of the House. I will allow myself to be nominated, and I will run as Speaker of the House. So that means she's the first former Speaker in 60 years to seek re-election. Someone did do that before. This doesn't completely buck everything in our history, but it is rare. Someone else did in 1950, 1956. 60 years, it's close to 60 years. Someone did, and he ran and didn't win, but he ran. And hopefully she doesn't become the Speaker either. Hopefully Democrats don't get the House for some time now. We want the left out of power. We want the left out of office. We want the left out of control. We don't want them to have any control in this country. We want people that advocate for killing babies to be locked up. We want people that hack our elections and try to imprison presidential candidates. We want those people to be jailed and locked up because they shouldn't be doing that to former President Trump. It's wrong and it's evil. And it is something that, Joseph Stalin would do. So yeah, there's that. And hey, Joe and Joe, Joseph Stalin, Joseph Biden. So we got to wrap up there, guys. Find us zoo_nation_ on Instagram. You can find us on Zoo Nation on Facebook, Zoo Nation 1776 on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Zoom Nation. My name is Josh, and everyone, have a great evening and take care.